Dear colleagues, we will start in 1 minute. Good afternoon. We have to begin because we have a lot of things to do, and we would like to start and finish General Assembly sitting. We are in agenda item 15, and now we move to the Working Group of Science and Technology. Let's hear the report of Working Group of Science and Technology presented by its chair, Ms. Margareta Zerfeld from Sweden. The floor is yours, Margareta.
Thank you, Madam President. Fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to report on the meeting of the Working Group on Science and Technology. Science and technology are advancing faster than ever before, reshaping our societies, economies, environment, and every aspect of human life. As parliamentarians, our task is to ensure that the transformation is guided by ethic, inclusiveness, and human beings. It's this commitment that define the work of the working group. In our virtual meeting in June and in our meeting here in Geneva this week, members of parliament were acting and we were taking part in the discussion and discussed about the moral and ethical compass of the digital age. Science is moving forward, and that's really important for our society. But we need also, as parliamentarians, to move further on with our legislation, with the ethical perspective, with the human rights perspective, with the moral perspective. And I would say that in our session in June, we reversed the IPU Charter on Ethics of Science and Technology, and the foundation of our shared values is in this fast-moving area. We discussed how to bring the Charter to life within our parliaments, and particularly how to apply its principles to artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is no longer a distant concept. It's shaping economies. It's about healthcare, education, democracy. And we could see, both in parliament, so all of us are using artificial intelligence, even very young children and elderly people are using artificial intelligence. So this means that there is a need for oversight and inclusion. There is a risk for deepening digital divisiveness, with a widening gap between people and nations. But we should, as parliamentarians, secure that no one is left behind this technological transformation. And in our October session, we agreed that the governance of AI demands is global. It's nothing that we can hand on only on national arenas. We need to work across our countries. And here is IPU, the absolute best format for this dialogue forward. And we need to include, as MPs, scientists, citizens, civil societies, actually the whole society. And we have therefore, as a working group, decided to develop an annex on AA to the IPU ethics to the Charter, turning broad ethical principles, practical guidance for parliamentarians. And I am pleased to inform that my dear colleague, Senator Nopadol Ina from Thailand, will serve as rapporteur for this important initiative. The committee's discussions were enriched also by experts' contribution who couched that while innovation should be encouraged, artificial intelligence need also an oversight. We need to breed the ethical perspective and secure that there is no discrimination leading to mistrust against public or between people. We also looked at the important work carried out by the IPU Center for Innovation in Parliament that pointed out how artificial intelligence was used responsibly and contribute to make parliamentarians more transparent, efficient, and strengthen engagement with our constituencies. But let me also say that the broader interaction of science, policy, democracy is important. And we all agreed on this in the working group. We need to share good practice, examples, and also have a discussion on how to oversight and see how our decisions are taken into practice and adopted by the national parliaments. I would also like to say that the evidence-based policymaking and scientific literacy is of high importance. But let me mention another important topic that we as well discussed and have on the agenda. It's water. Water is essential for all life on Earth. It's the heart of our life. It's for food, it's for economies, it's for energy, it's for the daily life of all of us who are here on this planet. But we know also that worldwide there is a lack of water. We could see it everywhere. We can see it in all continents. And this makes it as a topic where we as parliamentarians need to use science. We need to cooperate as MPs, cross-border as well. And that's what we are doing in the working group. And we had a visit by the UN Water Convention. And let me remind you all that they informed us that more than 60% of the world's fresh water crosses national borders. And this remains all of us as parliamentarians that we need to work cross borders to find a solution. And let me also finally stress that we, MPs, have a really crucial role to play to promote strong legislation, investing in technologies, education, access resilience, to ensure accountability in resources management, and championship in international cooperation. And for this, once again, I think all of us should use our IPU meetings for this reason. And let me mention that science and technology, it can unite us, it can also divide us. That's why it's so important to work for increased quality, for increased awareness in science and technology. And as I mentioned, it depends on the choice we make and the cooperation we foster. But we have in the working group a common mission. It's to strengthen parliamentary capacity, promote responsible innovation, and ensure that technology advances human welfare, equality, and peace. And we should be led by ethics, legislative conscientiousness, and not algorithms. It's the human beings should be the leader, not the algorithms. And I would like to conclude to thank the IPU Secretariat for hosting the Autumn Assembly in Geneva and commend them for the outstanding work in bringing us MPs together so we could continue our work. But I would last and most also like to thank Ambassador Mokhtar Omar and advisor Tasneem Jabberi for their support of the working group. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for this report. Dear colleagues, any questions? I can see, may I take it that you wish to approve this report? It is so decided. Thank you. Dear colleagues, the Governing Council will elect 6 members. The geopolitical groups have nominated the following members for a 4-year term ending in October 2029. Asia Pacific Group, Ms. Sashi Kiran from Fiji. Arab Group, Ms. Mahsen Al-Jagoub from Jordan. Group of Latin America and the Caribbean, Ms. Blanca Rodriguez from Uruguay. 12 Plus Group, Mr. Burak Akburak from Turkey. Eurasia Group, 2 vacancies remain for this group. May I take it that you wish to elect these candidates? It is so decided. Thank you and congratulations, dear colleagues. The next group is High-Level Advisory Group of Countering Terrorism and Violent Extremism. I'm now giving the floor to the chair of the High-Level Advisory Group on Countering Terrorism and Violent Extremism, Ms. Marcela Guerra Castillo from Mexico, to present the report on their meeting. Ms. Guerra Castillo, please take the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Distinguido secretario general, estimadas y estimados colegas, honorable asamblea. Como presidenta del Grupo Consultivo de Alto Nivel sobre la lucha contra el terrorismo y la violencia extrema, me permito destacar una de nuestras actividades más significativas, el seminario web celebrado el 21 de agosto de este año 2025 en conmemoración del Día Internacional del Recuerdo y en homenaje a las víctimas de terrorismo, que tuvo como tema central la educación como herramienta de prevención, de reconciliación y empoderamiento. Este encuentro reunió a representantes de 20 parlamentos nacionales, así como a expertos de organismos internacionales, miembros de la sociedad civil y víctimas también del terrorismo, quienes compartieron con todos nosotros experiencias y reflexiones profundamente conmovedoras. El mensaje fue contundente. La educación es una herramienta clave para la prevención, para la reconciliación y para el empoderamiento de las personas. Destaco también la importancia de integrar las voces y testimonios de las víctimas en los sistemas educativos como una forma de restaurar la dignidad, sí, restaurar la dignidad de las personas para contrarrestar las narrativas extremistas y fortalecer la cohesión social. El seminario concluyó reafirmando que invertir en educación y en las víctimas es invertir en un futuro más humano y en un futuro más seguro para todos. La 19ª reunión del Grupo SLAC que tuvimos aquí en el seno de esta asamblea Se dictó el compromiso de fortalecer la dimensión parlamentaria en la lucha global contra el terrorismo y el extremismo violento. También el de fortalecer los valores de la democracia y los derechos humanos, sobre todo también el Estado de Derecho. El debate se centró en el impacto del cambio climático y la escasez de recursos en la expansión del extremismo violento. Los expertos en los paneles, como el del Instituto de la Economía y la Paz y del Programa de las Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo, evidenciaron que la degradación ambiental, que la falta de oportunidades y la debilidad institucional, especialmente en el Sahel que sufre muchísimo y que es un semillero de terrorismo, porque también hay pobreza, porque hay carencias, porque no hay recursos y los jóvenes sufren día con día todas esas carencias y no tienen un futuro, o por lo menos así lo sienten. Por eso se aumenta esa inestabilidad y por eso se favorece el reclutamiento por grupos extremistas. Ambos, los expertos, coincidieron en que debemos fortalecer la resiliencia mediante la gobernanza inclusiva, el desarrollo sostenible y la construcción de la paz positiva. Se avanzó en la implementación de la iniciativa El Llamado del Sahel, y el cual se centra en 5 áreas prioritarias: la seguridad, la educación, el medio ambiente, comunidad, desarrollo y progreso. Se realizarán, y así se acordó en una reunión que tuvimos reciente con parlamentarios de países como Níger, Burkina Faso, Senegal y Chad. Tuvimos un diálogo muy rico en intercambio, no solo de ideas, sino también de posturas. Y se acordó realizar visitas parlamentarias a los países del Sahel con el objetivo de fortalecer la cooperación directa con los parlamentos nacionales, conocer los desafíos locales e intercambiar las buenas prácticas. Estas visitas van a incluir encuentros con líderes comunitarios, con fundaciones, con la sociedad civil, y para discutir y presentar programas ya exitosos en otros países, como la iniciativa de educación y rehabilitación de la Fundación NIM en Nigeria, y que podrán replicarse en otros países de la región. El 20 de octubre se realizó un panel con el tema Migración, terrorismo y crimen organizado transnacional. El debate evidenció que la explotación de las personas desplazadas por las redes criminales, en particular de niños migrantes no acompañados, representa un desafío global urgente, pero también se destacó que la migración no debe de asociarse con el terrorismo y que las respuestas deben de basarse en los principios de protección, de prevención y de asociación. Finalmente, deseo resaltar la importancia de colocar a la acción humanitaria en el centro de las estrategias globales y de seguridad. Por supuesto que los parlamentos tenemos un papel esencial en la protección de los migrantes y las personas desplazadas por el terrorismo y por la violencia extrema. Estimados colegas, en el SLAC se reafirma nuestro compromiso con la cooperación parlamentaria, la prevención y la construcción de la paz desde la dignidad, la inclusión y la solidaridad. Quiero aprovechar estos minutos que me quedan, estos segundos que me quedan, para agradecer el apoyo de todos los integrantes de este grupo. Todos han enriquecido el debate de una forma muy considerable. A los expertos y a nuestros socios, también a los que nos han aportado recursos de muchas maneras y que han hecho posible avanzar en esta causa colectiva. Es una gran causa de la humanidad. Es cuanto. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guerra Castillo, for this report. Dear colleagues, any questions to this report? May I take it that you wish to approve this report? So it's decided. Thank you. The Governing Council will elect 4 members the geopolitical groups have nominated, following members for a 4-year term ending in October 2029. African Group, Mr. Khalifa Kabre from Burkina Faso. Group of Latin America and Caribbean, Mr. Assis Kumar Gahadien from Suriname. Eurasia Group, 2 vacancies remain for this group. May I take it that you wish to elect these candidates? It is so decided. Thank you. Congratulations, dear colleagues. We move to the agenda item number 16, reports on recent IPU specialized meeting. Dear colleagues, a number of the meetings you have approved in previous sessions have now taken place. You can consult details on all of them on the IPU website. We will now hear reports on several of them during this item. Let us start with the second Parliamentary Conference of Interfaith Dialogue, which took place on 19 till 21st June in Rome, Italy. We have a video prepared on this event. Please display that video.
This conference provides us with an opportunity to discuss how we, as legislators, alongside all other actors of goodwill, can work together for a common future, being also a valuable tool for peace building and diplomacy.
I'm so moved when I see all members of parliament, representatives of faiths and beliefs, this diverse group of stakeholders meeting in these hallowed precincts of the Parliament of Italy.
An inter-religious dialogue can inspire intercultural and interinstitutional relations and provide an inspiration for our common responsibility as believers and as citizens to avoid any hijack of political ideologies that are trying to abuse of religious narrative out of its context and out of its authenticity.
Siamo diversi tra noi, abbiamo diverse religioni, abbiamo diverse culture, abbiamo diversi luoghi in cui viviamo e da cui proveniamo, ma questo non può fare la differenza. Dobbiamo superare queste diversità e lavorare assieme in uno sforzo comune per costruire ponti. I governi passano, ma nei parlamenti ci sono le espressioni di tutta la società civile, di tutte le forze politiche e credo che questa conferenza interreligiosa sia un'occasione straordinaria.
Even in community dialogues, we still find women's inclusion very, very limited. So we see that it cut across different facets of life, from social, political, or economic.
We get invited to many things, but something of this caliber really caught my attention, and I thought it was important for me to be here.
I'm in Rome to take this united flame as a flame of hope around the world and to bring together descendants of great legacies to come and speak about the necessity of peace, love and understanding, and justice above all.
Le Gabon, c'est une mosaïque d'ethnies, de croyances, et qui vivent en paix. Certains conflits semblent avoir des bases religieuses. Il est important de retourner aux fondamentaux de l'homme, de la religion, de la foi, d'apporter des réponses à ces conflits.
Because religion is inexplicably bound up with human identity, with our understanding of who we are not only as individuals, but as part of communities and nations and peoples. Where there are such tensions between different communities and nations, religion tends to be employed and often abused in partisan cause and interest. To the degree that we're able to address these root causes, we can combat the abuse of religion. But there are certain factors that particularly facilitate and exacerbate this abuse. I'm thinking in particular of ignorance and isolation.
In today's world where politics and religion polarizing the world, it is necessary to speak against this predominance of hate and the oppressiveness of that hate.
It's good to have outcomes, and it's good to have results, and it's good to have different things that we can hold on to. But the fact that we've gathered is incredibly important.
People of all religions, beliefs, and faiths are excited to attend an audience with the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, as a way of reaffirming our united commitment to the common good.
I am pleased that we can meet in the context of the conference of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. Political life can achieve much by encouraging the conditions for there to be authentic religious freedom, and that a respectful and constructive encounter between different religious communities may develop.
In the world is predicated on peace in our hearts. When you have peace, you can give peace. Please fill your hearts with peace so that you can make the world a better place, so that you can make the world peaceful.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions related to this report? If not, do I take it that you wish to take note of the report? Thank you. The next activity is the IPU Parliamentary Forum at the UN High-Level Politician Forum in Sustainable Development that took place on 22nd July 2025 in New York, United States of America. A video was also prepared on this event. Please display that video.
We are here together with our ministers and other government representatives to take stock of progress as well as setbacks on the SDGs, whose expiration year of 2030 is fast approaching. We are also here to strengthen our political resolve, to advance the goals and to hold our governments accountable. We are here to share our experiences and to learn from each other.
In solidarity with women around the world, I wish to underscore that it's the duty of all parliaments and their members to stand for the values of gender equality and to tirelessly empower women and girls.
L'importance de la femme, le rôle de la femme dans le développement de notre pays n'est pas à démontrer parce que la femme représente plus de 50% de la main-d'œuvre, 50% de la population de notre pays.
The good practices that exist in your countries, good policies, actions that are being taken in various forms to improve upon women's rights, to improve upon access to health, we should not rest on our laurels. We need to build on the progress that has been made. We have to push back on pushback because that's what is required in this 10th year of the SDGs.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions related to this report? If not, do I take it that you wish to take note of the report? Thank you. I'm now inviting Mr. Tian Se-yun, head of the Chinese delegation and vice chairman of the Education, Science and Culture and Public Health Committee of the National People's Congress of China, to present the report on the 2025 Inter-Regional Seminar on the Achievement of the SDGs for Parliaments of Developing Countries, which was held on 28 August till 6 September 25 in Beijing, China. Mr. Tian, you have the floor.
Madam President, Secretary General, fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen. From August 28th to September 6th this year, the National People's Congress, NPC of China, and the Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, jointly held the 7th seminar for parliamentarians from developing countries in China. Nearly 40 delegates from 9 countries, Gambia, Barbados, Azerbaijan, the Bahamas, Chad, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Pakistan, and El Salvador, attended the seminar. IPU Secretary General Martin Chuengong also came to China to attend the seminar. The seminar was themed Stronger Inter-Parliamentary Exchanges for Better Achievement of the SDGs, and featured in-depth discussion on 4 topics. Commemorating the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, shaping inclusive and equitable AI governance, promoting gender equality consensus, and pursuing development paths suited to national conditions. NPC Standing Committee Vice Chairman Zhang Qingwei attended the opening ceremony and delivered a speech and presented Mr. Chuengong with the Ambassador of Friendship Award, the recognition of his outstanding contributions to the friendship between IPU and the NPC. In addition to Beijing, the seminar included visits to Jilin and Shandong provinces to observe local projects in high-quality economic development, ecological protection, and artificial intelligence. Hosting the seminar is an important collaboration between NPC and the IPU to build parliamentary capacity in developing countries and advance the SDGs. Since 2016, 7 sessions have been successfully held with over 300 parliamentarians and parliamentary officials participating. Notably, last year, we successfully held the 6th seminar alongside the 40th anniversary of the NPC's membership in the IPU. The seminar has become a key platform for parliamentarians from developing countries to exchange governance experience and share development achievements, making positive contributions to sustainable development, democracy, and legal frameworks. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations and the victory of the global anti-fascist war. Over the past 80 years, the world has seen accelerated multipolarity and economic globalization. Yet, deficits in peace, development, security, and governance have increasingly disrupted global order. In the face of a complex and volatile international landscape, upholding genuine multilateralism and promoting coordinated development is a wide shared consensus. The NPC of China hopes to use this seminar as an important opportunity to work with the IPU and the parliaments of developing countries to further energize legislative cooperation with the fundamental goal of benefiting the people and building broad consensus for joint development, fostering a foundation of mutual respect, equality, inclusion, and mutual learning for greater well-being of all peoples, and contributing more legislative strength to global cooperation on sustainable development. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Tian. Are there any questions related to this report? Do I take it that you wish to take note of the report? Thank you. Thank you. Let us hear Mr. Wilson Soto from Peru, who will present the report of the 11th IPU Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians, Uniting Generations for Gender Equality, which took place from 11 to 13 September in Lima, Peru. Mr. Soto, you have the floor.
Señoras y señores, la marcha hacia la igualdad entre los géneros, que parecía imparable, se ha ralentizado en todo el mundo. En algunos lugares incluso está retrocediendo actualmente. Hay menos mujeres jóvenes de menos de 30 años en los parlamentos que hace tan solo 2 años. Esto no es un simple dato estadístico, es una advertencia. Cuando la mitad de la humanidad se deja fuera de la toma de decisiones, todos salimos perdiendo. Este es el desafío que nos unió en Lima con motivo de la 11ª Conferencia Mundial de Jóvenes Parlamentarios de la UIP, entre el 11 y 13 de septiembre del presente año. En torno a 120 parlamentarios y parlamentarias procedentes de 43 países se reunieron con dirigentes gubernamentales, representantes de organizaciones internacionales y jóvenes activistas para hacer frente a este desafío. Para mi Congreso ha sido todo un honor y un privilegio celebrar una conferencia que lleva siendo un sueño personal desde que asisto a los eventos de la UIP en Lima. Nuestra visión compartida quedó patente. Un mundo en el que la igualdad, la equidad y la paridad entre los géneros no sean aspiraciones lejanas, sino las realidades vividas. Y hemos hecho historia. Por primera vez logramos la paridad de género en la Conferencia Mundial de Jóvenes Parlamentarios en Lima, ya que las mujeres representaron el 50% de los jóvenes parlamentarios. Este hito es más que simbólico, demuestra que la transformación es posible, se nos comprometimos a tal fin. Aunque también hicimos sonar la alarma, el progreso se está deteniendo y ya no basta simplemente con hablar de la igualdad, debemos lograrla. Los países con más mujeres en las esferas donde se toman las decisiones prolongan más leyes que amplían los derechos, fomentan la inclusión y aumentan el crecimiento económico. Por eso instamos a emprender acciones audaces y concretas para implementar el plan de acción sobre la paridad de género adoptando este año en la Conferencia Mundial de Mujeres Parlamentarias. En primer lugar, instamos a efectuar reformas legislativas para que la paridad se integre en la ley, entre otras cuestiones, con cotas de género y de jóvenes reivindicamos medidas para reducir la edad para presentarse a las elecciones, poner un tope al gasto en las campañas y convertir las elecciones en más accesible para las distintas voces. También nos centramos en el liderazgo. Las mujeres ocupan únicamente el 24% de las presidencias de los parlamentos y solo 10 tienen menos de 40 años. La representación en los altos cargos es importante. Necesitamos a más mujeres y más jóvenes dirigiendo nuestros parlamentos, como el caso actualmente también el presidente del Congreso de la República de Perú está ocupando un cargo muy importante como es la presidencia de la República de mi país. También, por otro lado, además abordamos el tema de los entornos hostiles que con demasiada frecuencia alejan a la juventud, especialmente a las mujeres jóvenes, de la política. Instamos a adoptar políticas de tolerancia cero frente al sexismo, el acoso y la violencia en todas sus formas y a efectuar una mayor supervisión de las empresas tecnológicas para garantizar la seguridad de la participación democrática en los espacios en línea. Reivindicamos igualmente unos parlamentos sensibles al género y a la edad. Nadie debería tener que elegir entre formar una familia o ejercer su mandato en el Parlamento. La licencia parental, unas condiciones de trabajo flexibles y unas prácticas inclusivas son maneras de que nuestras instituciones sean modelos de conducta para los demás. Por último, reconocemos que de ninguna generación por sí sola pueden poner fin a la brecha en materia de igualdad. El progreso depende de las alianzas. Tuvimos el honor de contar con la participación de parlamentarios y parlamentarias veteranos y jóvenes dirigentes de la sociedad civil, con quienes nos comprometemos a trabajar más estrechamente. Los jóvenes parlamentarios y parlamentarias se marcharon de Lima, Perú, con un mensaje claro: se acabó la época de los gestos simbólicos, ha llegado la hora de los resultados. Les invito a que lean el documento final de nuestra conferencia y lo difundan ampliamente para que podamos invertir la tendencia en lograr la igualdad entre los géneros. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soto. And there are any questions related to this report? I can see. Do I take it that you wish to take note of the report? Thank you. I'm now inviting Mr. Sidi Njie, Deputy Speaker of Gambia, to present a brief report of the IPU parliamentary meeting at the UN General Assembly 2025, which took place on 24 September 2025 in New York, United States of America. Mr. Njie, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is with profound honor that I address this distinguished assembly to report on the parliamentary event held on the 24th September during the high-level week of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The annual parliamentary dialogue has become a vital platform for legislators across the world to exchange perspectives on global priorities and to reaffirm our collective duty in advancing democratic governance and human rights through parliamentary action. This year's event, held under the theme Beijing plus 30 Parliaments Leading the Way, centered on the defining questions of our time: how far we have come and how far we still must go in achieving gender equality and women's empowerment. The gathering brought together participants from 17 countries representing every region of the world, which of course include Burkina Faso, Chile, Ecuador, France, Gambia, Ghana, Greece, Madagascar, Mexico, Pakistan, the Russian Federation, Sierra Leone, Serbia, Sweden, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, United Arab Emirates. It was a powerful reminder that while our context may differ, our aspiration for equality is universal. I had the privilege of sharing the podium with distinguished colleagues, Ms. Cynthia Lopez Castro, President of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, Lord Fokafanua, Speaker of the Parliament of Tonga, Mr. Martin Chung, Secretary General of the IPU, and Ms. Nahla Haider, Chairperson of the Committee on the Elimination of Discriminations Against Women. Together, we reflected on the journey that began in Beijing 30 years ago. A journey defined by courage, progress, and yes, continuing struggle. Reflecting on the journey that started in Beijing 30 years ago, the meeting took a close look at progress as well as setback on women's participation in politics and in leadership positions. We were reminded of the lesson from recent history that where there is committed leadership, there is a way. Progress has always been the product of leaders who set out a strategy, who built momentum, and who refused to accept that inequality was inevitable. In my intervention, I made it clear that silence in the face of discrimination and violence against women is complicity. Women and girls should not have to ask for their rights. Those rights are intrinsic to their humanity. The struggle for equality cannot be won without men standing shoulder to shoulder with women. And as parliamentarians, we must ensure that history remembers us not as bystanders, but as champions who use the power of our voices and our votes to protect the most vulnerable. As we mark 30 years since the Beijing Declaration, our task is not merely to commemorate, but to renew our resolve. The commitment of Beijing must now be translated into tangible progress in our parliaments, our budgets, and our leadership cultures. Let us therefore reaffirm as representatives of the people that gender equality is not a privilege to be granted, it is a right to be guaranteed. And let us ensure that this right is protected, promoted, and practiced in every corner of our society. The time for rhetoric has passed. The time for action is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Njie. Are there any questions related to this report? I can see. Do I take that you wish to take note of the report? Adopted. Thank you. Let us hear a report on the meeting on No Women Left Behind dialogue on the representation of women in all their diversity in politics. It will be presented by Mr. Jamal Fakhro from Bahrain. Mr. Fakhro, you have the floor.
Distinguished members of the Governing Council, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, gender equality is the priority theme for the IPU in 2025. In this special year, I am really pleased to present to you a series of activities we have been leading under the WIPE Women Leadership Initiative, a new strategic project for the IPU. The project focused on supporting women's participation in Parliament, taking the social norms that hinder their participation and leadership in Parliament and combating violence against women's MPs. The project operates by building and enhancing intergenerational synergies and partnership among men and women MPs, and with women and young and youth movement and civil society organizations. The project is funded by the European Union and implemented by the IPU in partnership with UN Women, International IDEA, and United Cities and local governments. It is an initiative that started at the end of 2024 and will run until the end of 2026. As you can see, the project directly supports IPU strategic priorities, gender equality, and youth participation. It allows us to expand partnership and engage more deeply with civil societies. It also enhances our leadership in MPs and advancing women's participation and leadership in politics and parliaments, and addressing key barriers such as violence against women in politics and negative social norms. 7 intergenerational dialogue between young MPs, senior leaders, women and youth civil society, organizations, international partners, such as members of the Generation Equality Forum, as well as dialogue specifically among women MPs were held. As a result, critical issues were unpacked and synergies were built, including on harmful social norms that limit women's political participation, the role of male MPs in advancing gender equality, and experience of combating violence against women in politics. I was personally involved in many of these conversations, and I can testify to their relevance and usefulness. As a male ally and the fight for gender equality, I am thrilled by such opportunities to learn, reflect, expand my network, and work in synergy with like-minded fellow MPs and young generation and senior leaders from other sectors. A practical set of tools is being produced to support parliamentary action to advance diversity in Parliament, combat violence and negative social norms impacting women's participation in Parliament. Upcoming support to men and women MPs will include guidance material, training sessions, and additional spaces for intergenerational and multi-stakeholders dialogue. Colleagues, this landmark initiative is more than just a project. It is a vital investment for democracy. For everyone, I encourage all of us at the IPU to continue championing this important work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
I would like just to have one comment.
Okay.
This morning, the Speaker of Zimbabwe did say that if we want to have proper participation between men and women, that male should be invited to the discussions with women. Just want to say that yesterday in our workshop, we will discuss this subject. We have 9 males and 9 females. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions related to this report? I can see. Do I take it that you wish to take note of the report? Yes, thank you. Finally, let's watch a video on the 11th G20 Speakers Summit that took place from 1st to 3rd October 2025 in Cape Town, South Africa. Please display that video.
For the first time in history, the 11th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, the P20, came to African soil. In October 2025, the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa welcomed more than 400 delegates from G20 nations, regional bodies, and international partners to Claremont, Western Cape. Under the theme, Harnessing Parliamentary Diplomacy for the Realization of Global Solidarity, Equality, and Sustainability, leaders gathered to redefine the role of Parliament in shaping a fairer world. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Toko Didiza, and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Ms. Refilwe Mthweni-Zipane, opened the summit with a powerful call for unity, moral leadership, and shared responsibility. Delivering the keynote address on behalf of the President, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development urged parliaments to transform global commitments into domestic action. Over 4 intensive working sessions, delegates tackled the defining challenges of our time. 1. Disaster resilience and response, protecting the vulnerable through strong legislation and oversight. 2. Debt sustainability, calling for fairer global finance and transparent borrowing. 3. Financing a just energy transition, ensuring climate funding reaches women, youth, and affected communities. 4. Harnessing critical minerals, unlocking Africa's mineral wealth for inclusive local growth. Experts from the Open Society Foundation, National Treasury, and Departments of Environment and Mineral Resources helped shape concrete policy directions. Before the main summit, 2 powerful forums set the tone. At the P20 meeting of Women Parliamentarians, delegates committed to gender-responsive policies in climate action, economic recovery, and disaster management. Meanwhile, the meeting of young parliamentarians injected energy and innovation, calling for intergenerational partnerships and greater youth participation in shaping global decisions. The summit concluded with the adoption of the Cape Town Joint Statement, a blueprint for collective action. It summit reaffirmed multilateralism, climate justice, and debt reform. It urged equitable energy investment for Africa and endorsed the G20 Critical Minerals Framework to ensure that green growth benefits local communities. As the gavel struck for the final time, the baton passed to the United States, host of the 2026 P20 Summit. Africa's legacy was sealed, a renewed commitment to parliamentary diplomacy that bridges continents, amplifies the voices of women and youth, and drives a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world.
Are there any questions related to this report? If not, do I take that you wish to take note of the report? Thank you. We move to the agenda item number 17, any other business. And dear colleagues, I'd like to mention that during first session of the Governing Council, we haven't formally adopted the IPU sustainability policy, which was adopted by the Executive Committee, and it will be sent to you, and we will formally ask for the adoption in Istanbul during the next Governing Council. And we are nearly at the end of the agenda of the 2016 session of the Governing Council. Before I adjourn our meeting, I'd like to know if you have any other points you wish to raise. I can see. If not, I'd like to give the floor to the Secretary General for the last point.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have one last issue to raise here. You will remember that the IPU instituted the Crema Pasi Award some years back, and that award is supposed to recognize the contribution of a parliamentarian to critical works of the IPU. And this year, the process had been initiated to recommend a member of parliament that you would recognize in that capacity. It so happens that for reasons beyond the control of the prize award panel that is composed of the IPU president, former presidents of the IPU representing the various geopolitical groups, it has not been possible for that committee to entirely wrap up its work. And so you will have seen that that was not on the agenda of this particular session of the Assembly. I just wanted to let you know that that body will continue its work and will report to you in due course. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Secretary General. Now I'd like to thank you for your cooperation and contribution to the 2016 session of our Governing Council. I extend my thanks to the staff of the IPU Secretariat as well as the interpreters whose support was essential for the good proceeding of our sitting, and I think I close this session, but please stay in this room because we will begin the General Assembly. So. No. So, good afternoon again. I'm pleased to note that over the past 4 days of our Assembly, we have had very robust deliberation on a series of highly relevant issues. And I'd like to propose that we now proceed with the consideration of item 6. We will start with item 6 on our agenda, report of the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security. And I invite the acting president of the committee, Madam Fatima Belkri. You have the floor.
Dear colleagues, I am pleased to share with you the outcomes of the deliberations of the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security during the 151st Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. During its first sitting on the 20th October, the committee held 2 panel discussions. The first one focused on arms control and non-proliferation, emphasizing the need to prevent the next arms race. Participants underscored the urgent need for renewed parliamentary engagement to strengthen humanitarian agreements, promote transparency, and advance global disarmament. They noted that the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and militarization of the new technologies remain major challenges and highlighted the vital role of parliaments in ratifying international treaties, ensuring compliance, and fostering dialogue to prevent renewed arms competition. The session also featured the launch of the IPU issue brief, Democratic Checks, Military Balances, Parliamentary Oversight in the Era of Rising Military Expenditure, which outlines why such oversight matters and how it can be exercised effectively. Participants agreed that although defense policy is considered the responsibility of the executive, it must remain subject to democratic scrutiny to ensure the efficient use of resources and maintain public trust. Later that day, the Bureau of the Committee met to review ongoing peace and security activities, assess active conflicts worldwide, and discuss potential themes and initiatives to pursue ahead of the 152nd Assembly. At its last sitting on the 21st October, the committee held an expert hearing on the role of parliaments in post-conflict management and peace building. Experts in mediation, human security, and parliamentary practice shared experiences from fragile and recovering states. The discussion stressed that achieving lasting peace requires more than ending hostilities. It demands rebuilding governance, restoring justice, and addressing the root causes of violence. These discussions will inform the 3 co-rapporteurs as they prepare the draft resolution to be considered at the 152nd Assembly. I am finally pleased to inform you that Ms. Siham Najm from Mauritania and Ms. Sharmila Farouqi from Pakistan were elected to the Bureau, and that Mr. Hasni Mohammed, member of the Parliament of Malaysia, and I, Fatma Zahra Bellis, member of the Dutch Senate, have been respectively elected as President of the Committee and Vice President. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Can I take that the Assembly takes note of this report? It is so decided. Now I propose that we come back to the item 3, of the agenda, namely the general debate on upholding humanitarian norms and supporting humanitarian action in times of crisis. We have had substantive and robust deliberations over the past 3 days, having heard 133 interventions from 114 national parliaments and 16 partner organizations. Speakers of parliaments, deputy speakers, MPs, including many young MPs, experts and officials have all shared their experiences, good practices, and wisdom. May I kindly invite Deputy Speaker Helen Maniereng of Botswana and Mr. Laurent Verly of Switzerland to introduce the draft declaration.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente de séance, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, Mesdames et Messieurs les Présidents de Parlement, Mesdames et Messieurs les parlementaires, chers collègues. Nous sommes très heureux, avec ma collègue du Botswana, de vous présenter la déclaration de Genève intitulée « Veiller au respect des normes humanitaires et soutenir l'action humanitaire en période de crise.
Dear colleagues, here is an overview of the Geneva Declaration on Upholding Humanitarian Norms and Supporting Humanitarian Actions in Times of Crisis. We members of Parliament from around the world participating in the 151st IPU Assembly reaffirm our commitment to uphold and promote respect for international humanitarian law and support humanitarian action. We are meeting at a time of unprecedented levels of armed violence. Let us not forget that civilians bear the brunt of hostilities, especially women and girls, as well as the most vulnerable, children, the elderly people with disabilities, displaced persons, and the wounded sick. Civilian infrastructure, hospitals, and medical and relief personnel have also come under attack. We recall that IHL was designed to ensure a balance between the principles of humanity and military necessity. Its norms and principles aim to alleviate suffering and protect human dignity during armed conflict by protecting individuals who are not or are no longer participating in hostilities and by restricting the means and methods of warfare.
Les conventions de Genève de 1949 et leurs protocoles additionnels constituent le cœur du droit international humanitaire. Elles ont été universellement ratifiées et sont largement intégrées dans le droit international coutumier qui lie tous nos États et toutes les parties à des conflits armés. Au fil du temps, d'autres instruments importants du DIH, tels que la Convention sur l'interdiction des mines antipersonnelles et la Convention sur les armes à sous-munitions, ont également été adoptés. Ces traités visent à interdire certaines armes en raison des conséquences humanitaires dévastatrices résultant de leur utilisation, y compris les conséquences qui perdurent longtemps après la fin des conflits armés. Ces instruments humanitaires ont été créés pour limiter au maximum les souffrances des civils pendant les conflits armés et leur vocation est donc d'être appliqués et respectés en cas de conflit armé. Ce sont des outils de protection qui ne doivent pas être appliqués de manière sélective, interprétés avec latitude ou utilisés comme des instruments politiques. Défendre ces normes revient à préserver les valeurs morales qui nous unissent.
Humanitarian action is also facing increased challenges. We recall the importance of supporting principled humanitarian action, that is, humanitarian activities carried out in accordance with the fundamental principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. Furthermore, IHL imposes an obligation on all parties to a conflict to allow, facilitate, and protect the rapid and unimpeded passage of impartial humanitarian assistance. We recall the importance of providing adequate financial support for the activities of humanitarian organizations and express our support for the International Committee of the Red Cross and United Nations humanitarian agencies and other humanitarian organizations. We commend the vital work done by humanitarian professionals, often at great personal risk. Their protection and their independence must be ensured all the times. We welcome the Declaration for the Protection of Humanitarian Personnel launched at the 80th UN General Assembly and call on IPU member parliament to encourage their respective government to endorse it.
Chers collègues, à une époque marquée par la multiplication des conflits armés, la polarisation et les inégalités croissantes, ainsi que la désinformation généralisée, un engagement politique fort et soutenu en faveur du droit international humanitaire, ainsi que du soutien à l'action humanitaire, est plus nécessaire que jamais. Voici quelques priorités pour nous, parlementaires. Il nous faut renforcer le cadre juridique actuel du DIH et son application en poursuivant les efforts en vue de l'adhésion au traité du DIH ou de leur ratification. Également en veillant à ce que le DIH soit pleinement intégré dans la législation nationale, en intégrant par exemple le DIH dans la formation militaire. En veillant aussi à ce que des mécanismes de sanctions efficaces soient mis en place pour réprimer les violations du DIH au niveau national, régional et mondial. Enfin, en renforçant nos fonctions de contrôle afin de garantir que toute décision gouvernementale relative à l'utilisation de la force armée, au transfert d'armes ou aux opérations de paix soit fondée sur des données probantes et conformes aux obligations du droit international humanitaire et que l'impact humanitaire soit clairement pris en compte.
We need to prevent violation of IHL by supporting or establishing national IHL committees, by allocating predictable and multi-year financial resources for IHL national implementation, by integrating IHL expertise into our own parliaments, shaping public understanding of humanitarian norms and action by using our influence as opinion leaders and representatives of the people to speak out on IHL, counter misinformation and promote mutual respect and dialogue, by combating the dehumanization that often accompanies conflict and polarization and leads to the erosion of empathy and the normalization of suffering.
Il nous faut soutenir la mise en œuvre d'une action humanitaire fondée sur des principes, en adoptant des lois et des cadres administratifs garantissant un accès humanitaire rapide et sans entrave, tout en préservant la neutralité, l'impartialité et l'indépendance de l'action humanitaire. En plaidant également en faveur de l'aide humanitaire et en apportant un soutien politique et financier aux organisations d'aide humanitaire nationales et internationales.
We need to strengthen the global humanitarian ecosystem by building partnerships nationally, regionally, and globally with relevant IHL stakeholders, by strengthening cooperation with the ICR, UN humanitarian agencies, and humanitarian organizations, by ensuring the meaningful participation of women and youth, women and girls in particular, contend with structural gender inequality, including in conflict context, by investing in parliamentary diplomacy and dialogue for the preservation and renewal of multilateral values such as inclusion, solidarity, cooperation, shared responsibility, and a rules-based international order.
Chers collègues, nous saluons l'initiative mondiale visant à revitaliser l'engagement politique en faveur du droit international humanitaire, lancée par le CICR en collaboration avec l'Afrique du Sud, le Brésil, la Chine, la France, la Jordanie et le Kazakhstan, ainsi que la campagne mondiale du secrétaire général de l'ONU visant à faire respecter les normes en matière de désarmement humanitaire et à renforcer la lutte contre les mines. Nous invitons nos parlements à encourager nos gouvernements à les approuver officiellement et à y participer de manière active. Nous encourageons également l'Union interparlementaire à continuer d'intégrer le droit international humanitaire dans ses activités et de renforcer son assistance technique au Parlement dans ce domaine.
Honorable members, let us take this declaration back to our respective parliaments, disseminate the outcome of our collective work, and work to implement its principles through our legislative, budgetary oversight, and representative actions. Let us be advocates for humanity, compassion, and the rule of law. I thank you.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to endorse this declaration? It is so decided. Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
You are very fast, Madam President. I know what I'm going to say may not change the text of this Geneva Declaration. However, Madam President, in the similar vein that we have acknowledged the ongoing global initiative to galvanize political commitment to international humanitarian law, perhaps it was going to be good as well to commend those countries that have or are carrying out peace initiatives to end conflicts. That's the first one. Secondly, to commend also countries that have been championing and are continue to champion access to humanitarian aid to victims of conflict. And thirdly, to commend the media practitioners who continue to expose the violation of humanitarian norms. Some of these media practitioners have been killed during the call of duty. I think such efforts need to be recognized as part and parcel of such a declaration. I so submit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it will be noted, of course, that your intervention. So now, let us now proceed to the item 5 on our agenda. We have before us now the resolution prepared by the Standing Committee of Democracy and Human Rights, recognizing and supporting the victims of illegal international adoption and taking measures to prevent this practice. Further to the work of the Standing Committee, the revised draft resolution has been circulated as Assembly Document A/151/5DR. May I invite the rapporteur of this draft resolution, Mr. Michel de Mecht of Belgium, as well as the acting president of the Standing Committee, Senator Deborah O'Neill of Australia, up to the podium. Mr. Mecht, you have the floor to present the draft resolution.
Madam President, distinguished members of the Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, this week the Human Rights Committee adopted the resolution aimed at recognizing and supporting the victims of illegal international adoptions and taking measures to prevent this practice. Dear colleagues, chers collègues, c'est un travail important qui, je le pense, sera à marquer d'une pierre blanche, d'abord dans la lutte contre les adoptions illégales internationales et plus largement dans la lutte contre le trafic d'êtres humains. Vous le savez, nous sommes en passe d'adopter un texte essentiel pour les droits de l'enfant, un texte à portée principielle, universelle, qui doit nous permettre dans nos parlements respectifs à travers le monde de légiférer pour les victimes, celles d'hier, celles d'aujourd'hui et surtout celles que nous devons empêcher demain. Ce texte consacre un principe simple mais fondamental. Un enfant, où qu'il naisse, n'est pas une marchandise. Ce texte engage les États à reconnaître les victimes, à leur offrir réparation, vérité et justice. Il engage à ouvrir les archives, à faciliter les retrouvailles familiales et à supprimer les délais de prescription qui empêchent trop souvent les victimes d'agir en justice. La résolution appelle également à renforcer la coopération internationale, à mieux contrôler les agences d'adoption, à créer des bases de données ADN sécurisées, à encadrer les plateformes numériques pour empêcher qu'elles ne deviennent des outils de trafic d'êtres humains. Notre résolution, chers collègues, invite les parlements à enquêter, à sanctionner, à légiférer pour que, plus jamais, un enfant ne soit arraché à sa famille, vendu, déplacé ou adopté illégalement. Au niveau pratique, notons que de très nombreux amendements avaient été déposés et qu'un texte de compromis a pu être trouvé. Seul un point a continué à faire débat. At the final session, we proposed two further amendments to preambular paragraph 14 and operative paragraph 5 in a spirit of compromise and in consultation with the delegation concerned. There was a discussion in the committee and these questions were resolved by a vote. Après avoir voté sur ces deux paragraphes, la Commission a adopté la résolution dans son ensemble. Suite à l'adoption de la résolution, la Fédération de Russie a exprimé son opposition à la résolution et le Bélarus a émis une réserve au sujet de cette résolution. Mais revenons, si vous le voulez bien, aux fondamentaux. Chers collègues, ce texte s'inscrit dans le sillage des grandes batailles humanistes menées ici à l'Union interparlementaire. Ce sont des batailles, je le pense, qui doivent nous rassembler plutôt que nous diviser. Ce texte donne une voix à celles et ceux qu'on a trop longtemps réduits au silence. Je pense à Madame Colline Fanon, victime d'adoption illégale et qui avait témoigné devant notre Assemblée, un témoignage émouvant au nom de toutes les victimes. Et ce texte répare une part d'injustice et surtout, il en prévient d'autres. Car protéger les enfants, c'est protéger l'avenir et cet avenir, c'est ensemble que nous le faisons grandir. C'est pourquoi j'espère un large soutien autour de cette résolution. Many thanks to you. Kopkun krap, shukran, muchas gracias, obrigado. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Can I take it that the Assembly is ready to adopt this resolution? It is so decided. Now I give the floor to the acting president of the Standing Committee to present the program of work of the Standing Committee in 2026. Senator O'Neill, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear colleagues. I want to take the opportunity to congratulate the rapporteur for the committee, but all the rapporteurs who represent our geopolitical groups and do such incredible work in between these assemblies. Congratulations to all of you and thank you. The Standing Committee decided to support the Bureau's recommendation for the theme of its next resolution with the following title: Inclusive Social Development for All, Parliamentary Strategies to Promote the Rights and Empowerment of People Living with Disabilities. The Standing Committee also supported the nomination of 3 rapporteurs for this resolution: Ms. Fatma Onku from Turkey, Mr. Christian Law from Switzerland, and Ms. Catherine Mama from Kenya. A debate on this subject will be held at the next Assembly in Istanbul in April 2026, where members would have an opportunity to share their views and contribute to the preparation of that resolution. The resolution itself would normally be adopted by the committee in October 2026. The Standing Committee also supported the Bureau's recommendation to hold a debate on recent developments about artificial intelligence at the Assembly in Istanbul in April 2026. That would not lead to a resolution, but it was the view of the committee that this matter is moving so quickly and is of such importance to all parliaments that there would be a value in us facilitating such a debate. We noted the resolution on AI adopted by the Standing Committee in October 24. We continue to see things move very fast and being taken up in very different ways across our parliaments. We believe it would be meaningful to hold that debate on AI to take stock of the latest developments. The Bureau also suggested to incorporate a focus on the impact of AI on important matters relating to social and economic development, including climate change, jobs, and other impacts on society. I ask the Assembly to respectively support the proposal for a resolution on people living with disabilities and to take note of the committee debate on artificial intelligence. I thank you, dear colleagues.
Thank you very much, Senator O'Neill. And now we move to the item 6 of our agenda, report of the Standing Committee of Sustainable Development and United Nations Affairs. I'd like to pass on the Standing Committee on Sustainable Development and invite the President of the Committee, Ms. Mira Al-Suwaidi of United Arab Emirates, to present the report. Ms. Al-Suwaidi, you have the floor.
Thank you. The Standing Committee on Sustainable Development held 3 debates during this assembly. The first debate addressed building a fair and sustainable global economy, the role of parliaments in combating protectionism, reducing tariffs, and preventing corporate tax evasion. This topic aligns with the resolution to be presented at the committee's next assembly session in April 2026. Discussions focused on the need for equitable revenue generation from multinational enterprises, the importance of free trade for sustainable development, and the adverse effects of protectionism. Delegates also discussed ongoing WTO reforms and the inclusion of emerging issues such as e-commerce and artificial intelligence. Developing countries emphasized the importance of fair trade laws, strong oversight, and regional collaboration. The committee approved the co-rapporteur's proposal to replace the term evasion with avoidance in the resolution title, allowing a focus on legal tax loopholes that parliaments can address. The second debate examined the impact of climate change on vulnerable communities and countries. Experts, people with lived experiences, and delegates highlighted the growing frequency of extreme weather events, threats to environmental defenders, rising sea levels, and biodiversity loss. 24 delegates shared national experiences and called for inclusive climate policies, stronger international cooperation, and parliamentary engagement in tackling methane emissions and other key environmental issues. The third debate focused on preparations for the parliamentary meeting at COP30 to be held on the 14th of November in Belém, Brazil. Rapporteur Mr. Umberto Costa presented the preliminary draft outcome document, which calls on parliaments to support legislation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, enhance climate adaptation, and implement nationally determined contributions. Parliamentarians from 11 countries proposed additional recommendations, including strengthening climate finance, enhancing parliamentary oversight, and incorporating indigenous perspectives. The draft outcome document remains open for written amendments by all delegations until the 26th of October. At the close of the session, the committee held its bureau elections. Mr. Mohamed Anwar Bouchoua from Algeria was elected as a new member, and Mr. Artur Gerasimov from the Ukraine was re-elected for a second term. Ms. Mira Al-Suwaidi, me, from the United Arab Emirates, was elected as committee president, and Mr. Cesar Rendon from Mexico as committee vice president. The committee also approved its work plan for the 152nd Assembly, dedicating all sittings to the drafting of the forthcoming resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to congratulate all the new elected and re-elected members. And can I take it that the Assembly endorses the committee's decision to change of the resolution title to Building a Fair and Sustainable Global Economy, the role of Parliament in combating protectionism, reducing tariffs, and preventing corporate tax avoidance, and takes note of this report? It is so decided. Now I'd like to pass on the Standing Committee of United Nations Affairs. May I invite the President of the Standing Committee, Ms. Lucia Crechel of Argentina, to present the report. Ms. Crechel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. President. Dear colleagues, as a chairperson of the Standing Committee on United Affairs, I am happy to report on the two sessions our committee held on the 21st and 22nd October. Our first session was on the process for the election of the new UN Secretary General. As you know, Mr. Guterres, the current SG, is ending his second mandate at the end of next year. Our discussion focused on the gender. Do you realize that in 80 years no woman has ever served as UN Secretary General? Since its founding, the UN has had a string of 9 men in that position despite its commitment to gender equality. The committee adopted a motion put forward by Senator Salma Atalahan of Canada and the committee bureau, which calls unequivocally for a woman to be elected this time around. More specifically, the motion asks Parliament to hold briefing on the upcoming election while actively working with governments to identify as many prospective women candidates to nominate. I invite you all to pick up a copy of this motion, share it with your colleagues at home after this assembly, and bring it to life. We have an opportunity to help make history at the UN and give this organization a new face, literally, that of a woman at the top. This, along with signal that the UN is keeping up with the times and is willing and able to reform itself as needed to stay relevant. Regardless of who is elected in the end, the new SG will need greater autonomy to take decisions for the good of the organization and of the world. The second session of our committee was dedicated to the UN 80 initiative that the UN Secretary General launched in March of this year. We were honored to have as our main panelist the Under-Secretary General for Policy, Mr. Guy Ryder. Mr. Ryder set out the context and purpose of the initiative, which intends to make the UN more relevant and more effective in responding to current global challenges. The UN is strapped for cash as a few major donors are not paying the due on time and in full. Worse still, the UN is confronted with a value crisis wherever multilateralism was being undermined by a go-it-alone approach. Of the various recommendations that emerged from this debate, I will highlight just 3. First, Parliament should exercise close oversight of the UN 80 initiative to ensure that it leads to better results, both in terms of concrete work to support countries and in terms of managing complex global issues. Second, Parliaments can do a better job examining their nation's budget allocations to the UN system to ensure that they are of good quality with less earmarking and more money going to more efficient funding pools and on time. Third, while much of the future of the UN system depends on its funding and ultimately what needs to change are its decision-making processes and structures, such as the Security Council, where a few countries get to run the show. Finally, I am pleased to announce that the following colleagues were elected to the Committee Bureau at the end of yesterday's session. For the African Group, Mr. James Werikua of Namibia. From the Asia-Pacific Group, Ms. Maria Imelda Marcos of the Philippines. From the Arab Group, Ms. Rima Alialia of Saudi Arabia. From the GRULAC, Ms. Valentina Centeno Arteaga of Ecuador. And for the 12+ group, Ms. Manuela Tender of Portugal. As I agreed between the geopolitical groups, Mr. Centeno of Ecuador and Mr. Al-Nawayi of Libya were elected to the new committee chair and vice chair, respectively. Now, as some of you may know, this is my last IPU assembly as senator from Argentina. Before taking leave from you, let me say what an immense honor and privilege it has been for me to serve as a parliamentarian and as an active member of this wonderful organization. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take it that the Assembly takes note of this report? It is so decided. May I also take this opportunity to congratulate the newly elected office holders of the standing committees and wish them full success in the important work ahead. We can now proceed to the item 7 of our agenda, approval of the subject items for the resolutions to be adopted by the standing committees on democracy and human rights at the 152nd IPU Assembly and appointment of the rapporteurs. May I draw your attention to document A/151/7R1. As you will see, the Standing Committee on Democracy and Human Rights is proposing as its subject item for the next one-year cycle the theme of inclusive social development for all, parliamentary strategies to promote the rights and empowerment of people living with disabilities. Ms. Fatma Önkü of Turkey, Mr. Christian Lohr of Switzerland, and Ms. Catherine Mumma of Kenya have been designated as rapporteurs on this subject then. Is the Assembly ready to adopt this decision? It is so decided. I now suggest we proceed to item 8 of our agenda, amendments to the IPU statutes and rules. As you know, over the past 2 years, a working group established by the Executive Committee has been examining various proposals for amendments to the IPU statutes and rules received from the IPU member parliaments, the geopolitical groups, and various IPU bodies. On the recommendation of that working group and the Executive Committees, 2 sets of amendments were adopted by the IPU governing bodies in October 24 and April 25, respectively. 2 remaining proposals from that process were submitted to the IPU membership of 1st August 2025, and no feedback or sub-amendments were received by the deadline of the 19th September 2025. The first of these proposals amendments related to the rules of the Committee on the Human Rights of Parliamentarians and was adopted by the Governing Council earlier today. We are now inviting you to adopt the proposed amendments to Article 4.2 of the statutes, which has the effect of formalizing the status of non-voting observer for parliaments no longer functioning on the territory of the country concerned. Can I take that the Assembly approves this amendment to the IPU statutes? It is so decided. I now propose to move to the item 9 of our agenda. As you are well aware, on Tuesday, we decided to add to our agenda an emergency item on parliamentary action against transnational organized crime, cybercrime, and hybrid threats to democracy and human security. For information, I'd like to start by making an announcement regarding the decision of the emergency item. After the vote on Tuesday, the Secretariat was informed by delegations of Algeria and Vietnam that their respective votes had not been recorded correctly. Upon verification, it was found that indeed, due to technical and interpretation issues, the votes for both were inaccurately recorded. It has been corrected and will be duly reflected in the Assembly results and summary records. This doesn't not in any way affect the overall outcome of the vote. Colleagues, yesterday morning we held a discussion in plenary on the theme of the emergency item, and the drafting committee met in the course of the afternoon to finalize the text with representatives from all the geopolitical groups. May I now invite the rapporteur from the drafting committee, Mr. Hassam Alden Gwedi of Djibouti, to introduce the draft resolution.
Merci, Madame la Présidente de l'Assemblée. Le comité de rédaction sur le point d'urgence s'est réuni Mercredi, le 22 octobre dans l'après-midi, le point d'urgence dont il a été saisi avait été proposé par les délégations de la Thaïlande, de l'Argentine, du Chili, de la Pologne, de la Suède, avec l'appui du groupe de l'Amérique latine et des Caraïbes et du groupe des 12+. Le titre de la résolution présentée à l'Assemblée pour adoption est le suivant. Action parlementaire contre la criminalité transnationale organisée, la cybercriminalité et les menaces hybrides pour la démocratie et la sécurité humaine. Madame Markela Kera, de Mexique, a assuré avec finesse la présidence du comité qui comprenait les délégations de l'Afrique du Sud, l'Algérie, la Chine, le Cambodge, la Jordanie, Mexique, les Pays-Bas, la Suède, la Thaïlande et bien sûr de mon pays, Djibouti. Le débat a été l'occasion d'un échange de vues entre les participants qui témoignaient de la préoccupation ressentie par les parlementaires du monde face aux criminalités transnationales organisées. La cybercriminalité et les menaces hybrides pour la démocratie et la sécurité humaine. La résolution invite les parlements membres de l'UIP, conformément au droit international et à la jurisprudence internationale émergente, à reconnaître que les actes de criminalité transnationale organisée, qu'ils soient commis par les acteurs non étatiques ou par un État, ou ses agents agissant de manière organisée ou systématique, peuvent constituer des crimes contre l'humanité. Parmi d'autres dispositions, la résolution demande à l'UIP d'utiliser ses organes existants pour faciliter la coopération législative contre la lutte contre la criminalité forcée, les crimes financiers et les violations de droits de l'homme et du droit humanitaire, et de surveiller sa mise en œuvre. Je pense que nous avons ici une résolution brève et claire. Je recommande donc à l'Assemblée de l'adopter. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Can I take it that the Assembly is ready to adopt the resolution? It is so decided. Congratulations. Now, I'd like to give the floor to our Secretary General.
Thank you, Madam President. Earlier in this sitting, you had a report from the Committee on UN Affairs, and that committee made a motion regarding the proposal for the next Secretary General of the UN to be a woman. We would like to complete the picture of our cooperation with the United Nations. In the past several years, you have expressed strong support for multilateralism. You have expressed strong support for the UN, but you've also said that the UN needs to be reformed in order to be more agile and more relevant in order to address the challenges that are facing us. You also know that this year marks the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, and there are efforts that are being made to revamp this primary institution of international governance. And we have been in touch with the President of the General Assembly of the UN. In recent days, I believe many of you have received a letter from the Secretary General forwarding to you a message from the President of the UN General Assembly asking you as speakers of Parliament to, in your Parliament, mark or commemorate the 80th anniversary of the United Nations in a special way that would galvanize support for this institution. And we have also in recent days received a video message along those lines, which we would now like to ask you to kindly view. It is a message from the President of the General Assembly of the United Nations. So, Madam President, with your permission, we can now show that video for the attention of the members of this assembly.
Please put the video on.
Dr. Julia Exxon, Mr. Martin Chongong, distinguished speakers and members of parliaments. It's my pleasure to address the 151st IPU Assembly ahead of UN Day. Even though you have met in this assembly for over 150 years, you probably feel the same way as I did when I opened the 80th session of the General Assembly last month. This is no ordinary year. The international order is facing fierce headwinds. And the theme of your general debate, upholding humanitarian norms in times of crisis, could not be more timely. It's not just the United Nations that is under pressure, but the entire system of international norms and global cooperation. Therefore, on the eve of the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, I call upon all of you, as parliamentarians, as fathers, as mothers, as grandparents, as citizens, representing billions around the world, to stand up for the cornerstone of our international order, the UN Charter. It is more than just a piece of paper. For 8 decades, it has been the life insurance of every country, big or small, rich or poor. Because we know that even the strongest country in the world cannot confront global challenges alone. Just take the climate crisis. It does not stop at borders. Emissions anywhere affect people everywhere. Having served as a parliamentarian myself for many years, I know that defending these international norms and standards is easy to say in speeches like this. But it is another story when you feel the pressure in heated debates in parliament or face firestorms on social media. Especially if you are standing up for these principles as a woman or a young parliamentarian. As so many female presidents and heads of government reminded us during the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration during High Level Week in New York, when the headwinds are strong, we must hold the line together to defend our rights and freedoms. And therefore, the theme for the 80th session of the General Assembly reflects this truth: better together. That is why meetings like this are so important, bringing together voices from North and South, East and West, to defend our shared norms and principles, even and especially in times of crisis. And not just to collaborate, but also to connect and communicate with your citizens. You, as parliamentarians in the 21st century, know the value of communication, not only with each other in parliamentary chambers or, like in New York, in the General Assembly halls, but also with the 8 billion people you serve. On this 80th anniversary of the United Nations, we celebrate not just the story of an institution, but the story of people all around the world who are standing up for peace and justice and fighting every day for our principles, our United Nations charters. Parliamentarians, world leaders, and ordinary citizens alike. So I invite you to join this celebration of our United Nations and its billions of champions across 8 decades by sharing the communications material we have sent you tomorrow on UN Day or in the coming weeks in your parliaments. Because without your vital work at the IPU, in your national parliaments, or even in discussions with your citizens in town halls and maybe pubs, global agreements like the UN Charter would remain simply empty promises. So I count on you to make them a reality, together, better together.
This is not the story of an institution. It's the story of people people who stood between war and peace and chose peace. People who said, dignity cannot be broken. People who carried food on their backs, who rebuilt schools, who gave shelter to strangers. People who stood for the earth before it was too late. And the people who will carry it forward. The young, the unheard, the unstoppable. For 80 years, this has been and will be the work of humanity. Not perfect, not finished, but always better together. 80 years and more for peace, human rights, and sustainable development. UN. Better together.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we're shortly approaching the end of our General Assembly, and now I'd like to ask the presidents of the geopolitical groups for closing remarks. And I'd like to give the floor the president of the African group, Madame Angela Thokozile-Didiza. You have the floor. You have the floor.
Malibongwe, igama lamakhosikazi. This is the slogan about women, for women. It says, let the name of women be praised. You touch a woman, you touch a rock. And Secretary General, I want to add the voice to the call that the next SG of the United Nations must be a woman. And I also want to make an additional call that as countries will be voting for the next SG of the IPU, igama lamakhosikazi Malibongwe, it must be a woman. And we trust that those women who have applied will excel and indeed not only be elected because they are women, but because they are the best. As we come to the end of this 151st IPU General Assembly, the Africa Group expresses its appreciation for the successful convening of the 151st Assembly. We commend the IPU Secretariat and the Executive for facilitating a platform that continues to uphold the values of multilateralism, dialogue, and parliamentary diplomacy. As representatives of our respective nations and peoples, we are guided by the imperative to remain relevant and credible. The agenda items discussed during this assembly, ranging from humanitarian law to illegal inter-country adoption and climate change, resonate deeply with the challenges and aspirations of our constituencies. We believe that to a large extent, the Assembly achieved its objectives of addressing pressing global issues through inclusive and constructive agenda. The theme of the Assembly was particularly timely and significant. In an era where international humanitarian law is increasingly undermined by persistent and emerging conflict, reaffirming its centrality is not only necessary but urgent. This body of law remains the bedrock of our shared humanity, and the IPU's commitment to its protection and promotion is commendable. We've noted the reports of the Executive Committee on how they've dealt with some of the important matters, particularly in assisting some of our parliaments who might be struggling, who have actually come out of challenges and are finding themselves once again to a democratic path. We want to thank the work that you have done. But we also note the continuous monitoring you are having among our member states to see to what extent, as member parliaments, we remain true to the ideals of the IPU. We also note the work that has been done by other standing committees, which looks at particular issues that this body has found important in supporting, particularly towards democratization and humanitarian law being respected. We're especially encouraged by the continued efforts of the IPU to advance gender equality and youth empowerment. Over the past years, the IPU has demonstrated leadership in promoting inclusive representation and participation. These efforts are important in ensuring that our parliaments reflect the diversity and dynamism of our society. In my own region, Africa, I want to say and submit that we are doing what we can to increase the participation of women in our parliament, and particularly young people. The role of IPU in a fragmented world, in today's polarized and turbulent global landscape, institutions like the IPU play a crucial role in fostering cooperation and dialogue. Many of the challenges we face, such as climate change, migration, conflict, and economic instability, are global in nature and cannot be effectively addressed at national level alone. The IPU provides a unique and necessary space for parliamentarians to collaborate across borders and ideologies. As the Africa Group, we wish to express our concern regarding the interpretation and application of Rule 11, which governs the submission and consideration of emergency items. The process surrounding this rule must be transparent, consistent, and inclusive, and we urge the IPU executive, including the steering committee, to re-examine the rules, interpretation, and application to ensure fairness and clarity in future assemblies. The Africa Group remains committed to the values and missions of the IPU. We look forward to continued engagement and collaboration in strengthening parliamentary diplomacy and addressing the global challenges that affect us. We thank the IPU for its leadership and reaffirm our support for this work. At a personal level, having been the chair of the Africa Geopolitical Group, I want to thank of the IPU for having supported the work that we have done thus far, and want to say to you, Madam President, that our next Africa Regional Group chairperson will now be the Speaker of Ghana, another seasoned parliamentarian, whom we hope will continue the good work of our geopolitical group. I thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And now I give the floor to the representative of Arab Group, Mr. Jamal Fakhro.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي نائبة الرئيسة الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي، سعادة الأمين العام للاتحاد البرلماني الدولي، أصحاب السعادة والمعالي، رؤساء مجالس البرلمانات ورؤساء الوفود، السيدات والسادة المشاركين، الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يشرفني أن أتحدث اليوم بالنيابة عن معالي السيد إبراهيم بوغالي، رئيس الاتحاد البرلماني العربي، رئيس المجموعة العربية، في ختام أعمال الجمعية العامة 51 بعد المائة للاتحاد البرلماني الدولي، لأعبر عن بالغ التقدير والامتنان لما بذلته رئاسة الاتحاد والأمانة العامة من جهود متميزة لإنجاح أعمال هذه الدورة التي انعقدت في مرحلة دقيقة من تاريخ منطقتنا والعالم. السيدات والسادة، لقد شكلت هذه الدورة فرصة مهمة لتجديد التزامنا المشترك بمبادئ القانون الدولي والعدالة الإنسانية، في وقت يشهد فيه عالمنا تحولات عميقة وتحديات متشابكة. ومن هذا المنبر لا يسعنا إلا أن نتوقف أمام ما شهده قطاع غزة من مآس مروعة خلال السنوات الماضية، حيث خلفت الحرب دمارا واسعا ومعاناة إنسانية غير مسبوقة طالت المدنيين الأبرياء من أطفال ونساء وشيوخ. واليوم إذ نتابع وقف العمليات العسكرية فنؤكد أن وقف إطلاق النار لا يعني انتهاء المعاناة، فآثار الحرب المادية والنفسية والإنسانية ستظل شاهدة على حجم الألم الذي تكبده الشعب الفلسطيني الصامد، وأننا في هذا المقام نرى أن ما تحقق من وقف إطلاق النار ليس سوى خطوة جزئية ومحدودة على طريق طويل، إذ أن السلام الحقيقي والدائم لا يتحقق إلا عبر إيجاد حل نهائي وعادل للقضية الفلسطينية وفق قرارات الشرعية الدولية، وبما يضمن تمكين الشعب الفلسطيني بممارسة حقوقه المشروعة غير القابلة للتصرف، وفي مقدمتها حقه في تغيير مصيره وإقامة دولته المستقلة على أرضه وعاصمتها القدس الشريفة. ومن هذه المنصة الدولية ندق ناقوس الخطر سيد الرئيسة، ونؤكد أن خطر المجاعة وسوء التغذية وما يترتب عليهما ما يزال قائما في قطاع غزة رغم دخول اتفاق وقف إطلاق النار حيز التنفيذ، وأن الكميات المحدودة من البضائع والمساعدات التي سمح بدخولها القطاع لا تمثل سوى جزء ضئيل من الاحتياجات الفعلية، ولا تكفي لسد الفجوة العميقة في العجز الغذائي والتمويني الذي فرضه هذا الكيان الغادر عمدا كأداة للإبادة الجماعية خلال عامين من العدوان العسكري والحصار الشامل على القطاع. لذلك فالمجموعة العربية تجدد دعوتها الصادقة إلى تحرك برلماني دولي جماعي وفعال يهدف أولا وعلى وجه الاستعجال إلى فتح الباب على مصراعيه للمساعدات الإنسانية التي يجب أن تقدم وفق مبدأ الحياد والاحتياج الإنساني البحت دون تمييز أو تأخير أو انتقائية، خاصة أن خضوعها لأي قيود أو تفاوض سياسي يحولها من وسيلة إنقاذ إلى أداة تدمير وتهجير، ويشكل مساهمة فعلية في استمرار الجريمة. كما تدعو المجموعة العربية إلى التعاون والمساهمة الفعالة في عملية إعمار شاملة تعيد الحياة إلى مدمرة في قطاع غزة، وتحقيق المساءلة الدولية على الجرائم والانتهاكات التي ارتكبت بحق المدنيين. وفي هذا السياق ترى المجموعة العربية أن البرلمانات الوطنية مدعوة اليوم أكثر من أي وقت مضى إلى استثمار بيئة السلام التي بدأت تتشكل من خلال إطلاق مبادرات بناءة ترسخ ثقافة الحوار وتطفئ فتيل النزاعات قبل اشتعالها، ليس في الشرق الأوسط فحسب بل في جميع مناطق العالم. ونحن في المجموعة العربية نمد أيدينا إلى كل مبادرة صادقة تسعى إلى ترسيخ السلام العادل وإنهاء دوامة الحروب والصراعات ودعم مسار إعادة الاستقرار والتنمية في جميع مناطق العالم. سيرة السادة، لقد أثبتت الأحداث الأخيرة أن الدبلوماسية البرلمانية ليست ترفا سياسيا بل ضرورة إنسانية وأخلاقية تمكن البرلمانات من أن تكون صوت الشعوب في وجه الحروب والتمييز والاحتلال. ونحن في المجموعة العربية سنواصل العمل جنبا إلى جنب مع الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي وجميع المجموعات الجيوسياسية الأخرى من أجل تعزيز دور البرلمانات في بناء عالم أكثر استقرارا وعدلا وإنسانية. وفي الختام أتقدم باسم رئيس المجموعة العربية بجزيل الشكر والتقدير إلى رئيس الاتحاد والأمانة العامة وجميع الوفود المشاركة على ما أبدوه من روح تعاون وحوار بناء، ونتطلع لأن تكون مخرجات هذه الجمعية العامة خطوة جديدة في مسار طويل نحو عالم خال من الحروب والاحتلال والمعاناة يسوده الأمل والكرامة والعدالة. شكرا على حسن استماعكم.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to the President of the Asia Pacific Group, Mr. Seyon Tian. The floor is yours.
Madam President, Secretary General, dear colleagues, it is a great honor for me to address you today on behalf of the Asia Pacific Region Group. On October 19th, we held the Asia Pacific Group meeting, which was attended by 19 delegations. The meeting was undoubtedly a great success, with plenty of consensus reached within the group. During the meeting, APG members expressed their strong support for and a keen interest in participating in the IPU-related work. With a large number of candidates competing for vacancies within the APG for IPU positions. The APG also wishes to congratulate all the outcomes achieved during this assembly. Legislative bodies of all countries unanimously agreed to uphold the spirit of international humanitarianism, step up support for countries and peoples affected by crisis, and work in concert to address global humanitarian challenges. The 6th World Speakers Conference that has just concluded has adopted the high-level declaration which places peace, justice, and prosperity for all by practicing multilateralism at the heart of its theme. The theme and outcome documents reflected the common aspirations of all countries in the world and responded to the shared concern of the international community. We should turn consensus into action to advance the implementation of the declaration. As people's representatives, we from the APG are ready to build on this achievement and further enhance exchanges and cooperation with all parties, bridge differences through dialogue, promote peace through cooperation, and consolidate stability through development. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tian. And now I give the floor to newly elected president of the GRULAC Group, Mr. Rojo Edwards. The floor is yours.
I want to begin by saying thank you for the trust that you have placed in me. As the newly elected president of GRULAC, I accept this responsibility with total commitment to serve our region and our organization. But first, I would like to give a heartfelt word of appreciation to the IPU staff and the interpreters and everybody that make possible this very successful assembly. Please, a big round of applause to all of you. It's been very successful thanks to you. I also want to recognize our Secretary General, Sir Martin Chungon, for your steadfast service to our organization, and for our President, Gabriela Morawska, who is presiding in President Tulia Axon's absence with grace, firmness, and skill. An applause to you. You've done a great job also. I know how hard it is. So please, a big round of applause for everybody in this line too, trying to organize all of this. And now I'm going to switch, if I may, to Spanish. A mis amigos del GRULAC, quiero decir que nuestras elecciones internas demostraron quiénes somos. Tenemos unidad de propósito, somos respetuosos en el debate y generosos en espíritu. Quiero, dentro del GRULAC, partir agradeciendo a mi colega Daniel Cayani y a su delegación por el tono constructivo con el cual aportaron en el proceso. Estoy seguro que vamos a trabajar juntos con excelencia en los meses que vienen. También celebramos un hito importante. El señor Ravindra Parmesar de Surinam se convierte en el primer parlamentario de su nación en integrar nuestro GRULAC. Y también quiero dar una bienvenida a Rocío Abet de Paraguay como nuestra vicepresidenta. Yo sé que Rocío va a representar a las mujeres latinoamericanas y caribeñas y a todos nosotros con inteligencia, integridad y determinación. Y por lo tanto pido un aplauso también a los nuevos miembros de la directiva del GRULAC. Quiero también reconocer a Lucila Krexel y a Mansur Nadir por su destacada labor como miembros salientes de nuestra directiva. Y por cierto, a Karina y a Óscar, nuestra incansable secretaría que están con nosotros, gracias por mantener a nuestro grupo coordinado, informado y eficaz. Y por supuesto, a la delegación chilena y al Senado de Chile, que están en ese lado, por la confianza y el apoyo que me dieron para hacer todo esto posible. Colegas, nuestra prioridad es fortalecer la cohesión y la voz del GRULAC en el mundo. Profundizaremos las alianzas con todas las regiones, tenderemos puentes con nuevos socios y aseguraremos que nuestras propuestas sean prácticas, orientadas a soluciones y medibles. Hablaremos con claridad a favor del multilateralismo que produzca resultados, defendiendo siempre a los más vulnerables, promoviendo la justicia y fomentando el desarrollo y la seguridad de nuestras naciones. También impulsaremos iniciativas que ayuden a nuestra organización, la UIP, a enfrentar los desafíos actuales, la incertidumbre económica, las amenazas a la democracia, el crimen organizado, los riesgos ambientales y las profundas transformaciones impulsadas por la tecnología. A nuestros amigos de los otros grupos geopolíticos, reciban mi más profundo respeto. El GRULAC va a seguir siendo un socio confiable, escuchando con atención, conversando y negociando de buena fe y trabajando juntos para transformar el consenso en resultados concretos. Sigamos adelante con el espíritu que hemos demostrado hasta aquí, unidad de propósito, debate con respeto y acción con impacto. Y bueno, nos vemos en Estambul. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to the president of the 12+ group, Mr. Laurent Verly.
Merci, Madame la Présidente de séance, Madame la Présidente de séance, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, chers et chers collègues. Le groupe des 12+ s'est réuni à plusieurs reprises au cours de cette 151e Assemblée, notamment le 18 octobre pour une séance plénière et chaque matin du 20 au 22 octobre. Je remercie chaleureusement l'ensemble des membres pour leur participation active, leur engagement et leur esprit de coopération. Nos échanges ont porté sur de nombreux sujets, notamment les activités du groupe, les élections à venir et la situation financière de notre union interparlementaire. Je souligne la qualité des débats qui témoignent de la vitalité et de la cohésion de notre groupe géopolitique. L'un des points centraux de nos discussions a porté sur le profil souhaité pour la future secrétaire générale ou le futur secrétaire général de l'UIP. À l'issue d'échanges nourris et constructifs, notre groupe a formulé des recommandations désormais entre les mains de nos représentants au comité exécutif qui les défendront en toute indépendance et autonomie dans le cadre du processus de sélection. Je souhaite également saluer le travail collectif remarquable qui a permis l'aboutissement d'un point d'urgence commun, fruit d'une coopération exemplaire entre notre groupe, le GRULAC, et le groupe Asie-Pacifique, sous l'impulsion de la Thaïlande. Intitulée « Renforcer l'action parlementaire contre la criminalité transnationale et les menaces hybrides », cette initiative reflète notre engagement à défendre la démocratie, l'état de droit et la sécurité face aux menaces globales. Je tiens à remercier tout particulièrement nos collègues M. Talsma des Pays-Bas et Mme Sederfeld de Suède pour leur travail déterminant au sein du comité de rédaction. Nous nous réjouissons également que le projet Appel mondial à la solidarité parlementaire et à une action coordonnée en faveur de Madagascar ait obtenu la majorité des 2/3 et je salue le choix du leadership de l'Union interparlementaire de publier une déclaration sur ce sujet. Il s'agit d'une cause qui nous touche toutes et tous et qui illustre l'importance de notre action collective. Sur le plan institutionnel, notre groupe a participé activement aux élections aux différents organes de l'Union interparlementaire. Nous saluons l'élection de nos collègues des 12+, Dame Karen Bradley du Royaume-Uni et M. André Griffroy de Belgique, au comité exécutif et remercions chaleureusement Mme Avegherinopoulou de Grèce et M. Almodobar Barcelo d'Espagne pour leur engagement durant leur mandat. Je salue également l'élection de Mme Belrich, Pays-Bas, au bureau de la Commission permanente de la paix et de la sécurité internationale. Nous félicitons également Mme Tender du Portugal, élue au bureau de la Commission des affaires des Nations Unies, Mme Kartapele d'Italie pour son élection au comité sur le Moyen-Orient et M. Akburak de Turquie au groupe de travail sur la science et la technologie. On ne saurait oublier M. Farrugia de Malte, réélu à la tête du comité pour la promotion du droit international humanitaire. Sur le fond, notre groupe a été particulièrement actif dans les commissions permanentes. Nous saluons l'adoption à l'unanimité du projet de résolution sur le soutien aux victimes d'adoptions internationales illégales, porté par notre collègue de Megd de Belgique. Ce texte, co-rédigé avec des collègues d'Argentine et d'Inde, incarne les valeurs que nous portons, la justice, les droits de l'enfant, la solidarité et le rejet de toute forme de violence et d'instrumentalisation contre les plus vulnérables. Nous saluons également la désignation de M. Lor, mon collègue de Suisse, et Mme Oncu de Turquie, ainsi que d'autres collègues comme co-rapporteurs de la prochaine résolution sur les stratégies parlementaires pour l'autonomisation des personnes en situation de handicap. Notre reconnaissance va à Mme O'Neill d'Australie, présidente sortante de la Commission de la démocratie et des droits de l'homme, pour avoir su mener les débats avec compétence, tact et fermeté. Nos remerciements vont aussi à M. Talsma, Pays-Bas, pour son rôle essentiel dans la réforme du comité sur les questions relatives au Moyen-Orient, un processus exigeant mais indispensable pour renforcer la pertinence de ce comité dans un contexte géopolitique complexe. Je souhaite également rendre hommage au travail de Mme Sederfeld, présidente du groupe de travail sur la science et la technologie, qui a piloté des discussions importantes, notamment sur l'intelligence artificielle. Je salue également le side event co-organisé par notre groupe et l'Union interparlementaire sur le droit international humanitaire. Cet événement, qui a réuni des experts et des parlementaires de divers groupes géopolitiques, a permis des échanges riches sur la protection des civils en temps de conflit et le rôle central des parlements dans la promotion et le respect du droit international. Merci à toutes et tous pour votre participation. Enfin, last but not least, en français dans le texte, je tiens à adresser mes sincères remerciements à notre vice-présidente, Mme Gabriela Moras-Kravat-Staneka, qui a su suppléer avec efficacité à l'absence de Mme Tulia Axon à la présidence de séance, assurant avec brio la conduite des travaux de l'Assemblée. Je remercie également le secrétariat de l'Union interparlementaire et le secrétariat du groupe des 12+, pour leur professionnalisme, qui ont pleinement contribué à la réussite de cette session. Je vous remercie, chers et chers collègues, et je me réjouis de poursuivre notre grand et nécessaire travail au sein de l'Union interparlementaire. Très bon retour chez tous.
Thank you very much. And now I take the floor to the Secretary General for your closing remarks.
Madam Vice President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and President of the 151st Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, honorable speakers of Parliament, deputy speakers of Parliament present here, distinguished members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by expressing my sincere and heartfelt thanks to Ms. Marowska Staneka, and I'm sure, Gabriela, when just a few months ago you were elected Vice President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union in Tashkent in April, you were not expecting so soon to have to take the reins of a whole assembly. But you have executed that role with dignity and flair, and I want to thank you very much for your assistance. And of course, my heartfelt thanks go also to IPU President Dr. Tulia Axon. I wish her all the best of success in the elections that are taking place in Tanzania. And I believe I speak for all of us that we are looking forward to her returning to this fall and continuing her mantle of leadership as President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. At a time when conflicts and crises continue to rage around the world, It is once again a great comfort to us that IPU assemblies, your assemblies as IPU member parliaments, remain beacons of hope. Over the past few days, I have witnessed a renewed spirit of cooperation among the IPU membership, and the evidence of that spirit is all around in the decisions and outcomes that you have adopted today. The Geneva Declaration on upholding humanitarian norms and supporting humanitarian action in times of crisis is a landmark document, and it reaffirms some key recommendations and commitments that I believe are all very close to our hearts. And that is, international humanitarian law is vital in protecting human dignity and tempering the worst excesses of war, and that humanitarian action must be preserved and expressed to preserve the lives of millions. In adopting this declaration, you have reiterated your humanity and your compassion. And I hope that your actions going forward will live up to the fundamental principles set out in the document. It has also been a great pleasure for me to see the lively cooperation across multiple geopolitical groups that led to the adoption of the emergency item resolution on the scourges of transnational organized crime, cybercrime, and hybrid threats to democracy and human security. These constantly evolving threats more than merited the renewed attention of the global parliamentary community. And I am pleased that the emergency item resolution or mechanism offered an opportunity for the IPU membership to discuss and convey its responses to these issues. You have adopted an important resolution on illegal international adoption. Children's rights are never far away from our thoughts at the IPU, and I am pleased to see such a comprehensive document on this complex issue. The Standing Committee on United Nations Affairs is also making its voice heard again, saying loud and clear that the time has come after 80 years of existence of male leaders in the United Nations for the next Secretary General of the United Nations to be a woman. Of course, away from the plenary and standing committees, the IPU's parliamentary diplomacy efforts have continued on multiple fronts. The Committee on Middle East Questions has continued its discussions on reform with a view to bolstering its capacities to deal with the constantly evolving situation in the region. Likewise, the Task Force on the Peaceful Resolution of the War in Ukraine continues to look for new areas of common ground between the two parliaments whose countries continue to be in conflict. And through bilateral meetings and informal consultations, we continue to ensure that the IPU is lending support to the resolution of conflicts. During this assembly, I have had the privilege of hosting the speakers of the parliaments of Armenia and Azerbaijan as they pursue their laudable and noble efforts to mobilize their parliaments in support of ongoing peace processes between their two countries. I want to extend my congratulations to them on that commitment. I've also been pleased to advance progress, similar process with the leadership of the parliaments of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, following a mission I paid to the region earlier this month. As this assembly closes and we look forward to the next, I would like to remind you that the IPU never sleeps. The IPU never sleeps. Just next month, we'll hold a parliamentary forum in the context of the Second World Summit for Social Development, due to take place in Doha, Qatar. And we'll also be moving to Belém in Brazil for the parliamentary meeting at COP30. We are also co-organizing with the United Nations Development Programme a conference on artificial intelligence, which will take place in Malaysia. We have already begun efforts to prepare for next year's parliamentary session at the United Nations, which we organize in cooperation with the President of the UN General Assembly. And of course, as many of you have hinted here, next year, 2023, will be a bumper election year within the IPU, with the election of a new Secretary General, as well as a new President of the organization. In concluding, I would like to pay tribute to a country, and I name it Switzerland, that not only hosts the headquarters of our organization, but is always ready to host us, to welcome IPU assemblies in Geneva, year in, year out. Thank you, Switzerland, for your generous and gracious hospitality. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank the unsung heroes of our assemblies, the staff of this conference center, the CICG, this conference center, which my colleagues and I have become accustomed to. I want to thank my colleagues too of the Secretariat for the support that they've always extended in the organization of what you have come to expect of your Secretariat. That is a very successful assembly. My thanks also go to those heads of permanent missions here in Geneva, my colleagues, the ambassadors and permanent representatives. The Secretary General of the IPU may not be a very popular person in town because he constantly brings into Geneva high-level parliamentary leaders, and it is the permanent missions that are left with the burden and responsibility of taking care of these VIPs when they're in town. So thank you very much for your support, ambassadors and permanent representatives here in Geneva. Let me conclude by thanking those people that you would not see normally, but who are working behind the scenes furiously to take care of us. I'm thinking of the caterers, I'm thinking of the cleaners, and all those who contribute in their own way to the success of our assemblies. All these people keep the wheels of our assemblies turning, and we are grateful for everything that they do. I wish you all safe travels back home, and I look forward to seeing you again when we next meet in Istanbul in April 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Honorable speakers and deputy speakers of Parliament, distinguished parliamentarians, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends. It has been an honor to preside over this 151st Assembly of the IPU. Over the past few days, we have witnessed the best of what the IPU stands for: respect, dialogue, and shared resolve to place humanity at the center of our discussions. A shared resolve to place humanity at the center of politics. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for your active participation in this 151st Assembly and for the sincerity of your engagement. My gratitude also goes to the Secretary General, as well as to the IPU Secretariat, whose dedication and professionalism made this assembly possible. And in this place, let me thank very much to my staff members, Agata and Natalia. I know that without you, it couldn't be as efficiently and quickly. Together, we have created a space where ideas flowed freely, where differences were met with dialogue, and where our commitment to bringing about positive changes prevailed. Because dialogue, when carried by empathy and conviction, can build bridges even in a very fractured world. We have seen remarkable participation from parliaments of every region, political tradition, and culture. Each intervention brought a new perspective, yet all were entitled to be a single concern: how to uphold humanitarian norms and support those who risk everything to bring relief in times of crisis. Through these exchanges, we affirm the strength of parliamentary diplomacy, a diplomacy of listening and of seeking common ground. No doubt, the highlight of this assembly has been the general debate and adoption on our Geneva Declaration of upholding humanitarian norms and supporting humanitarian action in times of crisis. Dear friends, there is an old saying, all is fair in love and war. I think we can all agree that nothing could be further from the truth. Wars and conflicts have rules that must be upheld. The Geneva Declaration is therefore a collective statement of conscience, reminding us that international humanitarian law is the moral and legal foundation that protects human dignity even in the darkest of times. It calls on us, parliamentarians, to reinforce our national laws, ensure government accountability, protect funding for humanitarian relief, and stand firmly by the principles of humanitarianism. It also urges us to look beyond emergency response and to weave humanitarian protection into broader efforts for development, equality, and peace building. In this regard, the declaration also speaks to the world we want to build, or one where women and men participate equally in decision-making, one where young people shape the solutions of today and tomorrow, one where dialogue remains the surest path to understanding. The challenges we face are huge: wars that devastate nations, disasters that uproot millions, and the silent suffering of those forgotten by the headlines. But parliamentarians hold something powerful: the ability to turn compassion into policy. Our votes, our budgets, our voices, this can be put to good use and serve as an instrument of protection for the most vulnerable when guided by conscience. Now comes the real work. We need to carry this declaration home, to debate it, to translate it into action, and to ensure that humanitarian principles live not in words, but in concrete actions that benefit millions, in concrete actions that save lives. Esteemed parliamentarians, after these assemblies in which we failed to come together, another highlight of this assembly has been the adoption of our emergency item resolution. Parliamentary action against transnational organized crime, cybercrime, and hybrid threats to democracy and human security. I think this is an achievement we ought to celebrate. The emergency item was supported by sponsors from across several geopolitical groups. This emergency item resolution speaks to the times we live in. In the 21st century, crime, violence, and conflict are no longer confined to the physical world. They extend into cyberspace, where attacks can disrupt essential services, cripple hospitals, and endanger human lives. Cybercrime and hybrid threats can undermine democracy and erode trust of breathing speed. Our task as parliamentarians is to anticipate this danger, to legislate wisely, and to strengthen international cooperation so that technology serves humanity rather than harm it. I'm also pleased that we have also been able to address, through a formal leadership statement, the pressing situation in Madagascar, which requires our full attention and solidarity. Our program at this assembly has been a very busy one, with meetings of our specialized bodies, workshops, and thematic sessions, and many bilateral meetings. I think we can be proud of what we have achieved together. Dear colleagues, as we close this assembly, I wish to thank each of you once more for your engagement, your support, and your commitment to the people you represent. The IPU remains a meeting place for those who believe that dialogue, respect, and solidarity can shape a safer world. May the sense of purpose we have shared here in Geneva accompany us in the months ahead, guide our work, and strengthen our resolve to protect life, dignity, and peace wherever they are at risk. I wish you safe travel home. Thank you. And now, please stand for the IPU anthem. Thank you. I now declare the 151st IPU Assembly closed.